Hello, kia ora, I'm Philip Duncan. Thanks very much for joining us for our weekend weather update recorded on Friday the 26th of August. And we've got a big high rolling into the New Zealand area, the same one that brought the cold and wintry weather to some parts of Australia. And now Australia's got a warmer change coming through in the next day or two, while New Zealand is about to get a little bit cooler. And then next week, well, next week's looking a little bit messy. So let's take a look at the forecast at the moment as we head in towards Friday evening. So we've got low pressure moving away from New Zealand. It's driving in a southerly flow, a little bit windy, a little bit cloudy still for parts of the North Island. But as you get in towards Sunday, that will clear up and you'll start getting slightly cooler weather coming through for more places. Now this map today shows in the blue areas where the most amount of moisture is in the atmosphere, and the other areas, the drier sort of part of the map. So what this is showing you is a little bit of moisture still in this area here in the blue shading, but here you can see it's drier. So a much drier setup around Australia and New Zealand than it's been for the past few weeks, except in the very north here where we are seeing some bigger rainfall as those easterlies come through and the usual sort of stuff around the tropics. But in the New Zealand area, especially central New Zealand, where there's been all the flooding, it is looking a lot better than it has been. So let's take a look at the temperatures quickly in both Australia and New Zealand. This map here shows in the dark blue the areas that are below 5 degrees tonight and tomorrow night. So frosty weather in these areas, or potential frosts. And then as you can see here as we go into Saturday night, similar kind of areas in the east, but now we're also seeing some frosty or at least below 5 degree weather over into the western side of Australia. Over in New Zealand, this is the departure from normal map, so slightly different to the one we just showed you. And what this shows at a glance is which parts of New Zealand are warmer or cooler than usual. And what we're seeing here, overnight tonight, a little bit milder for the North Island and about normal for the south. And then as we get into Saturday night, slightly cooler as we get those clearer skies and that southerly flow for the western side of the North Island, including Auckland. It'll be a little bit cooler than average. Most other places are around about where they should be for this time of the year. It's been a while since we've actually talked about normal temperatures. Now the rainfall, this is for the next 3 days ahead. The bulk of the rain in Hawke's Bay, as that low comes around to the other side and drives in that southeasterly, the rainfall totals lift up in these eastern areas. So you're talking about another 30 to maybe 40 millimetres still to come through in those places, but the areas that have just been flooded, much lower totals, just 1 or 2 millimetres coming through, just a few showers. That's a pretty good forecast. So let's get into the maps, and here we are for Saturday. There's that big high coming out of Australia, the one that brought the snow and the frosts. Now it's drifting further out into the Tasman, and the southerly flow comes into the New Zealand area. You can see those showers and why the rain accumulation map was showing Hawke's Bay is a little bit wetter. As we go into Sunday, it stays showery along that eastern side of the North Island, but dry pretty much everywhere else as that high rolls in. Frosty weather for inland areas. And if you don't have a frost, it'll be a bit colder as you go through your Sunday night. And as we go over here to Australia, in comes the southwesterly change for some areas along the coast. But before that comes in, Sunday's actually warming up with that northerly flow kicking in right across actually the eastern side of Australia as well. So Monday next week kicks off with mild northerlies, seeing 20 degrees popping up in a few places like Sydney, and you've got some downpours moving through here in the interior. Over in New Zealand, that high drifting across, and so now we've got easterly winds still around the top of the country, but for the rest of New Zealand, it'll tilt a little bit more northeast or even northwest, depending on where you are. Northerly winds, easterly winds, westerly winds, they are dominating once we get into next week's weather, and not so much in the way of southerlies coming through, which is pretty much good news at this time of the year. Tuesday next week, easterlies at the top of New Zealand, northerlies for the rest of the country. Over in Australia, your northerlies are ending, and in comes the next high, which encourages a cooler south to southwesterly change for you there on Tuesday. Nothing too dramatic, only a couple of showers really here and there. And by the middle of next week, our final map, you can see for the last day of August, we've got northerly winds coming down right across New Zealand. There'll be northeasterlies for some and northwesterlies for others, but generally speaking, that northerly flow dominates on Wednesday in the New Zealand area, and that's ahead of a bit of a rainmaker coming through around Wednesday for the west coast, and then Thursday, Friday in other places. Meanwhile, there's a line of high pressure coming through from the Indian Ocean, and on the top of that, easterly winds blowing, and on the southern side of that, You got westerly winds blowing, and it's these westerlies that look a little bit spring-like, and spring kicks off next Thursday, at least on the meteorological calendar, it does. So there we go. That is the forecast right through for the rest of August. Have a great weekend. Thank you again so much for all the incredible support through the listener story this week about NIWA and Met Service and our government blocking tax-funded data to be openly used. Great story, and please do go and pick up a copy if you can. It's also in the New Zealand Herald behind a paywall. We're hoping that in a few weeks' time we'll be able to publish it for free over at Weather Watch. That's all from me. Have a great weekend.